and welcome to our first TDI classroom. My name is Christina Storbeck and I'm happy to moderate this session today. And we have great fireworks, so I'm also happy that you joined our classroom. So Klaus is also a bestseller author of different agility topics, and he's also the creator of flight levels and also a pioneer in Kanban. So hello. There we see him. Welcome, Klaus.
Here I am.
Have you here
Hello.
from Austria. Hello. Good to have you here, and now to learn more, the chapter 2 of flight levels. As you said, it's a follow-up. The first time you have been here in Deutsche Telekom already, it was an overall view on flight levels, and now you go into detail. What does it mean for each and every individual? Now I can see you also here in the studio. It's perfect to have you here.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, the title of my talk today is flight levels and the missing link to business agility. And well, I think this is somehow also the message that I tried to get across. So why it wouldn't make sense to use flight levels, no matter what else you're doing in your organization. Just to get to the point where we can achieve business agility. So before we start with what flight levels actually is and how it could help you, let's talk about the why. Why would flight levels actually make sense? Well, I tried to summarize the why in a book called Rethinking Agile, or in German Agilität neu denken. Rethinking Agile is a book about it basically tells a story. It tells a story about an agile transformation. There was an organization, and this organization, they wanted to become agile because the main goal that they wanted to achieve is they wanted to decrease their time to market. They wanted to become faster. We've just heard you achieved from 18 months down to 2.5 months. That's great, actually. And this was something this organization was also striving for. It needs to be faster in the end to get to the market. So what was the supposed solution? Let's become agile, of course. And their particular solution was, okay, let's build this Spotify structure with tribes and chapters and, I don't know, guilds and squads and so on and so on. The heart of it was basically that they build these cross-functional teams. They built cross-functional product teams, actually. So the idea was to tear down the silos, to bring as many people as possible in one team so that this team can actually deliver to the market. Yeah, and they even did something like product teams. So they set up like tribes along products. And again, also here, the idea was that, well, people in this tribe, they can just like work and deliver to the market without any dependencies. And that's the reason why time to market will go down. So much for the theory. They started this agile journey and spent some hundred thousands of euros. And the result was that the time to market was going up. And yeah, as you can imagine, they were not totally happy with this thing. But why did this actually happen? Well, the thing what they targeted is a lot of cross-functionality. So they tried to tear down all these silos in their organization, right? But the problem is they basically teared down the functional silos. That's good. And I'm a huge fan of this, of course. But they went from like functional silos to cross-functional silos. So, and that's, well, not much better in the end. So the point is, no matter how you structure your organization, no matter how you organize, there will always be silos. There will be, I mean, if you go from functional teams to cross-functional teams, you will probably end up in cross-functional silos, right? If you structure your organization along, I don't know, products, you end up in product silos, in customer segment silos, in tribe silos, in whatever. So the point is not so much to target the walls, like tear the walls down. What we need to do is we need to like drill interaction holes between these walls, in these silos, so that human beings actually can interact between the silos. So the point is we need to optimize the interaction of the parts. We need to optimize the interaction of people across silos. And that's what we did in this organization, actually. So I explain a little bit about this in this book, but I will dig a little bit deeper in this presentation here. What we did to overcome this issue, to establish these agile interactions between people across silos, we applied flight levels thinking. So there is the word again, flight levels. What is flight levels actually? Well, flight levels is not like a framework or something like this. Flight level doesn't tell you. You just have to follow this recipe and then everything will be fine or something like this, right? Flight levels is more like a thinking model which helps you to figure out where in an organization you have to do what in order to achieve the results that you want to achieve. The cool thing is flight level goes along with many frameworks. We see organizations doing flight levels together with Scrum, Kanban. But for instance, I mean, maybe interesting for your company, Swisscom is doing it together with SAFe. So flight levels is not like an either or to an existing way of doing things. It's more like an add-on, which helps us to find out where are the levers that we need to pull to achieve what we want to achieve. That's it. So what are organizations doing when they are applying flight levels in their context? Well, they try to establish 5 activities on 3 levels. That's what's going on. I will walk you through the 5 activities and 3 levels right now. So let's start with the 5 activities. So 5 activities. What are organizations doing when they are doing flight levels? One thing is what they are doing is they are visualizing their situation. Visualize the situation means, well, make stuff visible. Let's see what's going on, and let's not fly blind in the end, right? So it's quite hard to achieve any kind of improvement if you not really see what's going on. So the first thing that organizations are doing is people are visualizing their situation. So this could be a visualization of a situation, for instance. This is a quite extreme example, what we see here. Examples like this you see in environments where you have established processes, you're striving for operational excellence. We simply know what's going on. You can see like work items here. So this is the work that we need to do. And on the x-axis, you see a kind of process. And even on the work items, you see checklists. So this is a very detailed visualization of the situation. We know what's going on and we want to improve our operational excellence. However, this kind of visualization is not applicable to all environments. If you're more like in a research-driven environment, you cannot come up with a checklist because the point of research is we need to figure out what's going on, right? So if you are in an environment with a high degree of uncertainty, your visualization will look differently. Maybe something like this. That's a pattern, what we call now, next, later. So now this is like the stuff that we're working on right now. And then we just have something like, okay, next, before Christmas, we should hopefully finish these topics. But yeah, let's see. Then there's end of March and the rest is like, I don't know, in the future. So this is a visualization in an environment with high uncertainty. And I've just shown you 2 extremes. One extreme is like really like we know what's going on. And the other thing is we have no idea what's going on, more or less. But the world is not black and white, right? We know there are 50 shades of gray in between. So the point, what people are doing when they are using flight levels, they just try to make it visible what's going on, because we don't want to fly blind when it comes to improvements. We want to see what we're actually improving. So that's activity number 1. Activity number 2 is organizations create focus. Creating focus is actually one of the key things that we need to achieve, because without focus, it's actually quite hard. What does it mean, create focus? Well, I like this picture. This picture perfectly explains what create focus means. First, you don't have to, I don't know, study flow science or something like this if you want to interpret this picture. I think it's obvious what's going on here on this picture, right? We see a road network which is somehow fully utilized, right? And the cool thing is we can easily interpret this picture. If I'm the car that's coming in here on the right top corner of the screen, I probably won't be able to go, I don't know, 200 kilometers per hour. Would be a little bit slower, I guess. Yeah. So speed in systems, in congested systems, is actually good but not possible. The other thing is when I'm the car entering this road network here, I have no freaking idea when I will get out of this road. So predictability, due date performance in highly congested environments is also not possible, right? And I kind of like this picture because we can easily translate this picture or transform this picture, bring this picture into our organizations, especially in our agile organizations. Remember, the first activity was visualize situation, and that's what we see in many agile organizations. They make work visible, right? And each of these roads here could represent one of these visualizations, one of these boards. This is a board of a Scrum team. Here is another board of a Kanban team. Maybe there's a safe train somewhere going by here at the end of the screen. So this is all the boards, all these visualizations that we are building in our organization. And now if we fully load them with cars, with work, don't be surprised that you don't see any improvement in performance. So the point is, it's not so important what kind of agile method you are using. Well, on a safe train which is totally congested, or a tribe which is fully loaded with work, or a Scrum team which is fully loaded of work, you will always see the same result. Nothing, right? So the point is, we need to focus on the cars. We need to remove the cars from the road if we want to become faster. This means we need to unload our work system. We need to create focus on these topics that have to be finished fast. And this is highly important when it comes to building a work system where there's actually performance, right? So it's not enough that we just see what's going on. We also need to create focus. That's the second activity. What's activity number 3 when organizations do flight levels, apply flight levels in their organization? Well, they establish agile interactions. And this is, for me, actually one of the most important things. So create focus and agile interactions are the key components when it comes to highly effective working environments. Agile interactions means the right people need to talk together about the right stuff at the right time. And this is exactly where we try to establish these communications, these interactions between human beings across silos, across teams, across tribes, squads, whatever. The thing is, we need to find a way how we can communicate and interact across all these borders that are somehow in our organization. That's what we call established agile interactions, because without human beings, it's actually quite difficult to achieve any kind of improvement, right? So people are driving improvement and not systems are driving improvement. And we need to make sure that the right people are talking about the right stuff at the right time. And something like a visualization helps us for this, because these interactions, they usually take place in front of these visualizations. And hopefully this visualization is also like there is a focus created, and then these interactions between the human beings is much easier, of course. What else? Laurent was always talking about, metrics, measurements. That's also an activity when it comes to applying the flight levels thinking model in your organization. Activity number 4 is measure progress. Why do I think it's important? As Laurent also said, so it's not about measuring the individual performance and I don't know, doing bonuses on the if you achieve some certain kind of metrics or something like this. That's totally not what we want to do, and this is actually harmful if we go down this road. But why are measurements important? Well, doing flight levels for the sake of doing flight levels is actually quite unsexy. Hopefully we want to achieve something with it, right? So a measurement tells us, are we making progress towards the thing that we want to improve? So for me, measurements is a feedback loop, right? Are we heading in the right direction? If we see, okay, the needle is turning in the right direction, like we're becoming faster or whatever, throughput is going up, or I don't know, customer satisfaction is going up, whatever the purpose is of your transformation, right? If we see the needle is turning in the right direction, let's do more of it. But if we don't see any improvement, well, we need to change what we are doing, right? So it doesn't make any sense to do improvements in your organization if you don't know what you actually want to improve. And I also kind of like it when you are like defining these measurements, because what we see quite often in transformations, that we have somehow this common understanding, yes, we want to improve, I don't know, for instance, quality. Perfect. So all the people are nodding, yes, quality is important, let's improve quality. But what does quality actually mean? Are we improving? How do we see that, that our quality is improving? Do we see it by there are less bugs in a bug tracker in the IT system? Or do we see it by less calls in the support center? So what is it actually when it comes to, for instance, quality? So the thing is, whenever we try to define a measurement, what we do is we establish a common understanding across the people, which are part of this transformation. And this is really, really important, because without common understanding, it's really quite hard. I don't know how many organizations I see where like the mantra is, yes, we want to become agile. Perfect. Agility is the biggest balloon of hot air on this planet. So what does agility mean? For some people, agility means we are faster, double the speed in half the time. No, what was it? Whatever. Faster and more productivity. For others, it's like, we are hugging trees, because agility is like the well-being program for our organization. If you have this diverse views in your staff, in your employees, it's really quite hard to achieve a common goal. So it's not about like pulling on the same rope, it's also about pulling in the same direction, right? So, and that's why I think measurements are really essential. Are we making progress in terms of a feedback loop, and are we talking about the same thing, right? What we want to achieve. So this is activity number 4. So we visualize the situation, we create focus, we establish agile interactions, and we measure the progress. 5 activities, there's 1 activity missing, and this activity is improve. Improve is more like, that's something that we need to do all the time. This means when we're improving our system all the time, we're circling through these activities again and again and again. And I think that's also quite important, especially when it comes to a transformation or something like this. People often think like, okay, we are in state A and we want to go to state B, and this is a direct line, right? And then we are in B, and then we are done. No, that's not the point. When it comes to agility, it's about continuous improvement all the time. We never ever stop to improve ourselves. We never ever stop to improve the way how we work and the work system that we are working in. So we need to establish these loop. And that's the activity number 5. Okay, so when you apply these 5 activities, most of the time you end up with a board, which looks something like this, right? Doesn't have to, but yeah, most of the time. Another question is, okay, what is so unique about this? If I take a look at these 5 activities, I could say, yeah, Scrum fits perfectly in there, Kanban fits perfectly in there, so design thinking. So there's many things that somehow fit in there. Yes, and that's by purpose. There's one thing, you don't like apply these 5 activities somewhere isolated in your organization. You need to apply these 5 activities on 3 different levels in your organization. And this is where the flight levels come in. So 3 different flight levels where you are applying these 5 activities. What are these flight levels? Flight level is a term from aviation, and it tells us how high an aircraft is flying, right? And we can fly on different heights. And the same is true for our organizations. Even in organizations, we can fly on different levels. If we fly very low in an organization, we fly on flight level 1. Flight level 1 is the operational level. We see a lot of details. We see what individuals are working on. We see what the team is working on, right? So it's really like, okay, the team level, the operational level where people are doing the actual work. The thing is, we can apply these 5 activities on the operational level. We can apply these 5 activities on the team level. Usually an organization has more, surprise, surprise, than only one team. So we will see multiple flight level 1 systems in our organization. Most often it's the case that one team alone cannot deliver directly to the market, right? We need multiple teams that need to somehow coordinate in order to deliver to the market. And this is where we need to fly a little bit higher. This is where we need to fly on flight level 2. Flight level 2 is end-to-end coordination. In the best case, from idea to impact. So I have an idea and I have impact in the market. That's what we want to see. So the idea is, of the flight level 2, we bring not all the, but representatives of the teams to this visualization, right? And they have a conversation about, all the problems, or not only problems, all the things that are somehow important across the team level. Flight level 2, end-to-end coordination. We make sure that the right people are talking about the right stuff at the right time, and we make sure that the right people are working on the right stuff at the right time. This is the world of your products. This is the world of your services. This is the world of, if the tribes are somehow set up quite smart, of your tribes, of your agile release trains or something like this, right? The cool thing here is on a flight level 2, from a flight level 2 perspective, we don't care how the people on flight level 1 are doing their work. So or if they are using an agile framework or not. So we could see Kanban teams here, Scrum teams, or maybe people are just working, right? It's also fine. We just make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. Most of the time, we have more than only one product, only one service, and so on. So this means we will see multiple of these flight level 2 systems. And on all of these flight level 2 systems, we are applying these 5 activities. We visualize the situation, we create focus, establish agile interactions, and measure the progress and improve, right? That's what we are doing also on the flight level 2. Often it's also the case that we see dependencies on this level. Right? Often it's the case, okay, if we change something in product A, we need to change something in product B. Or if tribe A is doing or changing something, there's effect for tribe B and C. This is also something that we solve on a flight level 2. We can bring these systems closer together, and we build something what we would call an operational portfolio. Operational portfolio is still flight level 2, but here we apply the 5 activities basically across tribes, across release trains, across products and services. We can fly even a little bit higher, and this is flight level 3. And on flight level 3, we're talking about strategy. So the idea is that we want to align the work in our organization to the strategy, and we want to make strategy happen. This means we're connecting the flight level 3 systems to the flight level 2 and flight level 1 systems. And even here on flight level 3, we apply the 5 activities. Make the work visible, and so on. Create focus, which is actually quite important here. So these are the 3 flight levels. And the idea is, if you want to improve our organization, we need to apply these 5 activities on all these 3 flight levels. But there's one important question actually, and this is like, okay, but how do we figure out our flight levels? I mean, if we take a look at the poster, it looks quite easily. You can probably map any org chart to this poster. The teams, yeah, we can find them quite easily. Human beings are somehow assigned to teams. They are working in departments or something like this. And then we have, I don't know, the bosses up there. That's not the point of flight levels. Not the point of flight levels. So you can map your org chart to the flight levels, yes. But most of the time, I don't say never, but most of the time you should not do this. Because flight levels is about the operational structure and flight levels is not about the organizational structure. So we want to figure out how we are actually creating value for our customers. So we are focusing on the operational structure and not on the org chart. This means we need to figure out what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems in our organization. And we can do this by building something what we would call a work systems topology. There are some different examples, what you see here from real life work systems topologies. And yeah, this is how it looks like when you apply, like when you try to figure out what are your flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. And if we take a closer look at one of these work systems topology, you even see that it's not always that clear that we have a flight level 1 system and only a flight level 1 system, right? Flight level systems are also merging together from time to time. So for instance, here we see flight level 1 systems on a team. They are working on this flight level 2 system, but here we have an operational portfolio, which is still a flight level 2, but we have connected the flight level 3 board to this operational portfolio board. So this is something what we see quite often. So in the end, we need to figure out when we want to start with flight levels, what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems? Highly important. And we basically try to detach from the org chart. We want to focus on the operational model that we are doing, right? So that's something what we call a work systems topology. So let's assume we did this. And now we understand, okay, we know what our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems are about. The next thing, what we need to do is we need to make sure that all the people have a common understanding about the work that's actually going on these systems. I mean, this sounds somehow, I don't know, easy, but in the end, it's not, especially when it comes to agility. So we somehow, introduce something new, and there are established terms like epic or story or something like this. We need to figure out where in this organization are we actually talking about epics and stories, and what is it when we talk about an epic or a story, or whatever the work is that you're going to do. And that's what we call the flight items. Flight items, it just basically tells us, okay, these are the work items, these are the flight items that we are working on in our organization. We have a description of what it means. For instance, here we say an epic, we as organization have a common understanding that this is a short-term activity between 2 and 6 weeks. Yeah, and we work with epics on flight level 2 and flight level 1 systems. So this sounds trivial, but it's not. I've seen multiple organizations where some people have an understanding of, okay, an epic is something between 2 and 6 weeks, and others are like, oh, these are our 2 years projects, right? No, it's not. So we also need to figure out, okay, which work is handled where. So now we know what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems, and we know which work is handled where. So this means we can start to apply these 5 activities on these systems. However, there's one thing still missing, because the point is, most of the time, work is flying across these flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. This is also where we need to take a look at, because we don't want to build agile islands. we need to connect all these visualizations, all these work systems together. And that's what we call flight routes. Yeah, I'm showing you an example here. So this is not the flight routes of flight levels. This is just an example, highly important. A real life example from an organization. I will also give you the link where you can get more information about this case if you want to. So flight routes. What does this mean? What we see here is the company wall. This is like what we've seen before, the work systems topology. This is this mixture of a flight level 2 and flight level 3 system. So we have strategy information and like an operational portfolio here. And this is the so-called dealer board. The dealer board is, in their case, it's actually one tribe, right? So one product, which is a dealer product, like for car dealers. And this is the visualization of the dealer board. Now let's get to the point of the flight routes. The thing is, how are these systems interconnected? How are we coordinating? How are people coordinating across these levels? Well, what we see here on the company wall, like on the left side, we have strategy information and KPIs. So this is the strategy. I don't know, we want to enter the whatever Latin American market or Hungarian market. And these are some KPIs that we want to achieve. The flight level 2 system, in this case, the dealer tribe, they are taking this strategy and KPI information, and they are now somehow splitting it up and making sense out of it for this environment, for this work system. So yes, we want to enter the Hungarian market, perfect. But what does this mean for our product? What is our strategy? How we enter the Hungarian market, right? So that's what's going on here. In the next step, so we're still in decision mode. This means we don't know what we are going to work on, but that's what we are figuring out here, right? In the next step, what they are doing is they are generating canvases. A canvas is, in this particular case, more like something where you try to nail the jelly on the wall. So strategy is jelly, right? And we have an idea of how we could probably do something. And with a canvas, we really want to describe, okay, and we think this is how it could happen. Yeah. In this environment, and again, in this environment, a canvas, there is no time bound. A canvas could be shipped to the market in 2 days or in 2 years. They're like, okay, we don't want to think about time at this point in time. This comes later. This comes now, because when we have this canvas, what this organization is doing is they're generating initiatives out of this canvas. An initiative is something that has impact in the market in 3 months. This means not only it's delivered to the market, but we see the impact in the market within 3 months. That's quite challenging. They don't achieve it all the time, but that's at least what they want or what they are striving for. So we have the strategy, derive canvases out of it, derive the initiative out of it. Now one could imagine that this tribe here starts to work on it, but that's not what's going on here. What they are doing is this tribe and all the other tribes, they bring their initiatives to the company wall, right? So this and all the other tribes, they also bring their initiatives to the company wall because they want to have a competition here, a competition between the best ideas. Most of the time, some initiatives are also flying in from the side. Usually the lawmakers have great ideas for us, like for instance, GDPR and stuff like this. So the idea is that we have now a competition among all these initiatives. And this organization is doing something what they call as a strategy. What is it called? A strategy planning, sorry. A strategy planning where they try to figure out, okay, what are the initiatives that we want to ship to the market? And if they have this understanding, the flight level 2 systems, the tribes, they pull in the initiatives that they are delivering to the market from the company wall. Yeah, so they pull it in. So it's not a push from flight level 3 to flight level 2. Flight level 2 pulls in the initiatives that they want to deliver to the market. So here on this tribe, we're talking about a 3 months work item. Of course, that's much too big for teams to work on. So what the teams do is they split this in epics. Epics is something where we've seen it before, 2 to 6 weeks. This is something where they say, okay, that's a size that we can handle somehow. This is done on this flight level 2 board. And then finally, the team board kicks in. The teams, they now pull the epic on their flight level 1 board, on the team board, right? So it's again not a push from flight level 2 to flight level 1, they pull it in. That's quite important here. And then the members of the team, they split up this epic into stories, and then people start to work on the stories. So this is what we call the flight routes. What I've shown you here is more or less one flight route. However, there are multiple flight routes in your organization. When you start to think of the flight routes, you probably end up with a picture like this. So usually you don't have all these visualizations in place where you can draw the flight routes like I did it now. So you do some kind of abstraction. You have something like the company wall here, the products or tribes and the teams, right? And what we've seen is this flight route. So the strategy information is visible on all flight levels. Then we derive a canvas out of it, an initiative. Initiative goes up, down, epic, epic story, right? This is the flight route that we've seen. We've also seen this flight route where work flies in from the side and then it goes down. However, there are, of course, other flight routes. Don't forget about the operational work. In many organizations, operational work is 90% of their business, right? So, of course, this is somehow in conflict with all the other stuff. So this is the flight routes. And with the flight routes, what we try to do actually is we try to establish to not optimize the parts. So it doesn't make sense that we have perfect tribes and perfect teams and perfect individuals and everything is perfect and everybody is just working on their own. What we need to do is we need to connect all these perfect environments together. We need to glue it together, and that's what we are doing with the flight routes. And the thing with the flight routes is it's not about defining these flight routes and then you're like, oh wow, now we know how to perfectly work together. As I already said, for measurements is a lot about common understanding. What we always need to establish is common understanding among all the people that are somehow involved in our organization or that are working in our organization. And when you are drawing these flight routes, it's a lot about common understanding, actually. We build up understanding who needs to collaborate with whom, right? So for instance, what I try to do, I try to detach from this detailed view from time to time and draw like a very abstract view of flight routes. So this could be flight level 3, flight level 2, flight level 1. When we as a group come up with flight routes which look like this all the time, this tells a story, right? This tells a story that probably there are some very smart people on flight level 3 who exactly know what the people in our organization need to do, right? If we only see flight routes like this. I don't say that this is a bad flight route, but if we see too many of these flight routes, that's a signal. This means we don't care about ideas of our people, right? For instance, if we see a flight route like this means, okay, our tribes or products or whatever your flight level 2 actually is, they can come up with ideas. But however, it makes sense that we somehow compete these ideas. So we bring the ideas to the flight level 3, take a common decision, and then we start working on it. So this is another shape of flight route that I would like to see in organizations. And I would also like to see this shape in organizations. I see so many companies that are, I don't know, organizing something like hacking days. 2 days of hacking and great fun and pizza and everything is cool. And there is really like great things that pop up. But then after the hack week, that's it. we just go back to normal. No, maybe some team figured out something really, really great, and this needs to be a company priority, right? So is there actually a way how a human being can have a great idea and this can come to this can become a company priority, for instance, right? So is our organization able to do something like this? So when we build these flight routes, we want to see also shapes like this, hopefully, yeah. And I also like to see shapes like that. Autonomy. This means we have an idea and we just work on it, right? So do we have flight routes like this? And if so, for what kind of work, right? So yeah, as I said before, flight routes is a lot about finding a common understanding of how we collaborate and yeah, what is possible and what is not possible in our organization, and what are actually the ways how we make it happen in the end. And I think that's really crucial, because otherwise you have high-performing team members that are working, but it does not fit together in the end. All right, so I was talking about a particular case study. There are 2 YouTube videos where you can see more information about this dealer board that I've shown, this Flight Level 2 board. This is Jochen Kurz, and we're talking about this Flight Level 2 board, and this is Matthias Batzak, and we are talking about this company wall. This is this mixture between Flight Level 2 and Flight Level 3, like strategy and operational portfolio. If you're good in German, you have an advantage because the videos are in German. However, there are English subtitles, so you can yeah, also read the subtitles of this, just in case that you're interested. Okay, it's time to sum up a little bit. So we were talking about the flight level systems architecture in the end. So what do we need to glue all the agile islands together? We need to figure out in our organization, what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems, and how are they connected? That's what we call a work systems topology. Then we need to have a common understanding among all the people, like what are our flight items? This means what work is handled where in the organization, and what, like the common understanding, what do we mean when we talk about projects or stories or initiatives or whatever, right? This is what we call flight items, and we need to make it fly. So, and you can fly high when you figure out the flight routes. And again, flight routes, it's about bringing the people together, and again, about establishing a common understanding of how work is actually flying through our organization and who needs to talk to whom in order to make it happen, right? And it, as I said before, it uncovers like blind spots that we haven't seen before. Yeah, and it's again about common understanding among people. All right, so what do you need? Usually it's the sequence. You build the flight level systems architecture first, then you build your flow, your flow designs, which is like you build your flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. And of course, you also need something like change and leadership if you want to do flight levels in your organization. And one of the most important things here is change. And when we talk about change, we talk about an agile change process. I'm not a huge fan of, I don't know, define a waterfall process to become agile. This does not make a lot of sense, right? So agile change process is important. And remember, whenever you do something with on a flight level 2 system or so, you're running into large group environments, because usually at the stand-up meeting, you see 30 or 40 people show up. So how do you do a stand-up meeting with 30 to 40 people? It's good information to have because we don't want to waste time. We want to be efficient, right? All right, so this is somehow the core, what I would think when it comes to flight levels, would be important in your, that we have this in our organization. The thing is, what else? I think I have somehow shown that flight levels is a way of how you can optimize the work system. However, and that's really important here, the best work system is of exactly no use if you don't focus on the people and bring the people on board. Because the thing is, any change, any improvement is always driven by people. You can have the best framework and everything. This won't work if you don't bring the people on board, if the people don't understand actually what do we want to achieve with what we are going to do here. And for me, like, one of the most important thing is don't build stuff, work systems or whatever for people, build it with people. People need to be involved in building the systems, need to be involved in operating the systems and improving the systems, because the bottom line is that success is definitely the responsibility of every individual in an organization. Without it, you're basically screwed. That's it. Thank you for your attention, hopefully.
Thank you, Klaus. I have to thank you, and I would like to welcome everybody back in our studio in Bonn. We can see you also here together with us, and I have all great speakers with me, so I'm happy that you stayed and are open now for all questions from our vote. So I would like to motivate you once more, use our vote survey and upvote questions, or raise also your question to the vote survey. And we have nice questions already in it. And I would like to start with a question to Klaus. So what is the difference between flight levels and the SAFe framework?
I get this question actually quite often, because one could see, well, you could apply actually flight levels in your organization and you end up with something like what you want to achieve with SAFe, right? But the thing is, most of the time it's not an either or. So SAFe and flight levels is not like fire and water. It's more like steak and potato. They go very well together. So for instance, there will be a flight levels day in November, I guess, that we're running together with D. Verlag. And we will have a speaker from Swisscom, which is similar to your, no, not similar, which is actually your business, right? And they are talking about how they are more or less improving their SAFe implementation by using flight levels. So it very well fits together. So it's not an either or. However, you can do flight levels without SAFe, of course, because flight levels with the 5 activities and the 3 levels, you can just apply it out of the box and it's also fine. But if there's already a decision to do SAFe, it's not an either or. It's more like, okay, improve your SAFe with flight levels. And that's actually also the title of Matthias Fernandez, who will be the speaker at the flight levels day from Swisscom. I hope this answers somehow the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like to follow with a bit provocative question here also to our round. And it was about agility means distributed authorities and accountabilities. How will we as D team manage to really enable decision according to respective roles instead of always being dominated by the bosses? And now I'm asking the question to the bosses, so a bit provocative today.
So I think, firstly, we need to have more clarity on what needs to happen where. Yeah. So for example, it is important that the bosses clearly define the objectives and the direction. Yeah, and not just the next step. Yeah. So I think be clear on who does what. Yeah. And that for me is always a misunderstanding we often have in our organization, that people think SAFe is about hierarchy on the different levels. It's more about structuring work. Yeah, who takes care of what. Yeah, and then I think it comes from both sides. Yeah, so the teams need to take the responsibility. Yeah, and actually embrace that, and the bosses have to let go and say, look, I'm very clear on this is where I want you to go, and I'm very clear this is a boundary condition, for example, on architecture, but I don't care on exactly how you do it. Yeah, And there's this nice German word loshalten, so letting go on the one hand and giving security and guidance on the other hand. And I think that's something we as bosses have to learn. And also to be also frank, I think it also helps to change a little bit the bosses. So if you want to do it with exactly the same bosses who have done it for the last 10 years, I think that's also difficult. But you've probably seen a lot of change in DT in the T&I leadership. So I think that also helps.
So to complement first of all, I see it as a kind of double-sided kind of activity and learning here. So it's not just the bosses learning to let it go, as Peter just said. That's one piece. And by the way, if you remember, we had this talk about what is the new leadership role, how can we let it go, also the split in responsibilities right now. So there's a lot of letting go in there. So a lot of learning on the bosses side. But it's also from an employee perspective, it's important to take the role afterwards. So if you get something, so to say, feel responsible, execute on it, deliver on it. That's the second part. And just one interesting observation again, what we haven't discussed so far is where should we have these discussions and decisions? From my point of view, it should be there wherever it could be done. So we should really also push a little bit this kind of decisions down to the best level where we can have the decision and let them decide. But again, that needs discipline from both sides. It needs responsibility, taking over responsibility, so courageousness, so to say, in the end. And that's important for both parts, as said.
Good. Thank you so much. I have even one more question, which is upvoted quite heavily, and I think it plays into that as well. It's saying, it's also looking at Klaus, how to deal with heavy flood on stakeholder requests coming to our organization. Currently, many teams receive much more requests compared to our capabilities.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have, and hopefully you're always in this situation, because if you have less requests than human beings, you can let people go, right? So it's a good situation you're in. That's the first thing that we I think need to understand, right? However, of course, the situation that is being triggered is not very how would I say, comfortable, right? So I think having something like a clear strategy, where do we want to head, helps us to somehow decide what do we need to do now, and maybe what later, and maybe what even we don't want to touch. So this is one important thing. And the other thing is creating focus. I've shown this picture about this road, right? So the point is, nobody says that we are like, when we are creating focus, that we don't work on all the projects. But what we are going to do is we only let some projects into the systems, some requests into the systems, and we try to finish them as fast as we can, and then we can start the next one. And this actually speeds up everything. What's the problem for many people is that there are so many things in parallel in the system, and they have to constantly shuffle around these topics. Now I need to work on this one, then on this one, then on this one, then on this one, and then on topic one again. We need to avoid this, and this does not mean that we are not working on all the requests that are coming in, if this makes sense.
Thank you, Klaus. And I look back in this round here, Laurent.
Maybe to add here, Klaus, so I completely second what you say. It's rather a good news to have that situation, but still, I think it's a pain situation for all the parties involved, because I mean, the people that have lots of requests are frustrated because not everything comes through, and the people receiving all the requests are just in burning situations. So what we're trying to do in Tel IT is to engage on lots of ways to prioritize. Klaus, you talked about speed to deliver, which I think is one of the best drivers. Another one we're trying to bring on the table is the discussion on value. What does it bring? And here, this is where the bosses also came into play, because what of course happens often is when you go down to a team and there's a request coming towards a team, of course for the person handing over the request, it's bringing the highest value for this individual. But then as an organization, how do we balance that value into the broader scheme of things? This is where I do think we need also to help the people, so that the value discussion and the prioritizations happens at the right level. and in the end, we help the teams to cope with their backlogs.
I agree.
Agree on that. Good. I would like to follow also with another question. Are there good flight routes and bad flight routes? I'm not sure who want to take over. I guess Klaus, but maybe also someone here in this round.
Klaus can kick it, or?
Yeah, I can kick it off. I think there are not like only good flight routes or only bad flight routes. I think it's the mixture of flight routes. That's the point. If we only see flight routes like this, like from flight level 3 to flight level 1, something like this, and we only see these kind of flight routes, that would be a bad signal. Because this means we have very smart people on flight level 3 who exactly know what's going on or what the organization needs to do. It's about the mixture. But if we only see flight routes like this, for instance, like the teams are taking decisions on their own and everything is just like, I don't know. This means we probably don't have a lot of alignment in our organization. We don't know what this team is doing and does it somehow pay into what the other team is doing. So I think the mixture is the point, and it's not about good or bad flight routes. It's more like if we only see one kind of pattern, the dominant kind of pattern, that's a sign which we want to avoid.
Probably to follow up on that one, just a thought from my side. I think one of the issues we typically have is we try to apply a system all over at the same time, so to say always following the kind of same track. That's our typical kind of pattern. Here, that's more a capability question. It's something we have as a capability, hopefully, in the organization, and we just use the capability whenever best used, so to say. So in case we are adapting, so to say, to the situation, we are trying to get the right kind of reflex in the end, or reflex, into place. And I think that's the more important thing, to get the capability, understand the system, and play with the system according to the outcome. So it's more outcome focused, adoption, so to say, of what we have learned on the capability side.
Yeah, outcome is also an important buzzword, yeah, very important. And I would like to follow up with a specific question also on our situation during pandemics. So do you see boards and flight levels less successful in pandemic times without people being co-located as before?
Well, maybe let me start to say one thing, at least in our organization, given that the business stakeholders and a lot of the developers doing the work are across many locations. We have never had the luxury that typically everyone was in the same room all the time anyway, right? But I think what that has taught us, and the pandemic even more, that you need to think very carefully when is it worth bringing everyone together, And so, for example, clearly for program increment planning, or if you need to take something as Klaus explained it, and get it to maturity, to that it can actually enter into a flight, then I think it makes sense to bring people together, So I think that, from my point of view, it actually made us a little bit more versatile as an organization, and we now need to make sure that we actually come back together when it makes sense together, and not everybody stays in their home office all the time. That for me is the real lesson.
I like this kind of concept Peter is just introducing, because that was exactly our talk in the elevator this morning. That was exactly our elevator pitch, so to say, with each other. Because we also had the discussion about, does it make sense, this push in the one extreme, so everybody back, or does it make sense to let everybody at home? No, but defining reasons to come together. So the reason in the middle, so to say, find reasons why to come together, why to get people together for a better outcome. That's the way I think both of us are thinking here, how to drive it forward. Again, that's also a learning. We are always swapping between the one and the other extreme at the moment. So from everybody at home to everybody should be back. But we have to learn here exactly this purpose-driven kind of approach back into our offices.
Great. I see Klaus nodding. Anything else to add also from your side?
Well, not really. I can really just like echo what I've just heard. So it's about finding the reason. And one thing is, I know some organizations who were pre-corona just like no tools. We just want to have sticky notes and nothing else. And many of these organizations are now like, it's really cool to work like with a tool and to work from home and all this. So there's definitely a shift into this direction. But yeah, not extreme. Yeah, I can just echo what I heard. Totally agree.
And I think this is a perfect and relevant topic also to close our great kickoff today. I would like to thank all of you, all speakers. It was really a pleasure listening to you and to get this inspiring information, insights, practice sharing. And I really want to emphasize now the work starts. Get engaged with your colleagues, reflect your own situation, learn more, experience and stay curious. And here I want to close also our first kickoff. I would like to say thank you also for listening and participating. Learning is like gold dust, so please use it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.